What do we have on the dead woman?
It looks like he spent the weekend with her, and then he brought her home and killed her around midnight. The man we're after is a spy and a murderer.
They mean to kill me, Sam. I'm the one in the picture.
If it were your intention to bring down David Bryce, then I'd have to make sure that you didn't get away with it.
You have no idea what men of power can do.
We're talking Costner, tin cup to Silverado, talking Costner, Bodyguard and Fandango, Robin Hood is making the rich pay, going off the board on draft day, talking swing vote, Wyatt Earp and JFK. Okay.
How do we do this again? How would we start?
Just like this. Keep it in. Keep it in. We're only on the 5th or 6th episode. We're only 5 or 6 months in. This is the end. Hello. This is the intro. Hi.
It's the podcast, you know? We talk about Costner. What more do you want?
There's things, there's stuff, there's thoughts and opinions. There's content to consume. Welcome. Welcome. Kim, how are you doing?
I'm good. My sports team had a terrible playoffs. Them oily boys, those Oilers.
I saw from afar. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, they sure do suck most of the time. In the playoffs this year, so that was good. Got 4 good games out of them.
Did that at least feel good that they were there?
No, because they got swept. No, it felt like nothing. The regular season felt great.
Yeah. Is it better to have playoffed and been swept than never to have playoffed at all?
For sure. Yes, of course.
Okay.
But when you've got 2 of the best players in the world and you can't win a game, sad, man.
Yeah. And our listeners might not know this, but certainly our friends will. I don't really follow hockey. Who are the players there? They still got Gretzky? Is that guy still?
Yeah, they still got Gretzky and Messier and Curry. Yeah. Grant Fuhr's in between the pipes.
I do know that reference, actually.
Oh, there you go. You know
from my
the
90s.
lineup of the most famous team ever.
Yeah, I'm well, as our listeners know, I know how to Google things and IMDb things.
No, I'm talking about one Connor McDavid, the
old C. McD.
The old C. McD. The McD.
Do people call him that?
I call him C. McD all the time.
Well, there we go.
I'm not people, though, so.
I guess I'm an Oilers fan, then.
Yeah, he put up the best points percentage year since Mario Lemieux, and then out in 4 games. So that was nice. That was a nice little trip.
Not bad. Well, I'm sorry for your loss. I mean,
sports are stupid, and it's not a real loss. It's just me pouting in my living room. There's always next year.
That is true for everyone but the Oakland Athletics, I think, at this point. So, yeah.
Oh, are they out?
They're probably moving to Portland.
Oh, damn!
Probably moving. So
is that no? I guess Golden State's. Are they still in Oakland? No, they're not.
No, they're just LA now. Like, really.
Golden State is.
Yeah, I mean,
they play in LA.
Well, no, but I think everybody who.
Right, but they don't play in Oakland.
They don't feel like the Oakland team.
Yeah,
and not just because. Yeah,
the Raiders are gone.
The Raiders are LA now. So
I thought they're Vegas now.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, there was an L in there. There was a loss in there, and that's as far as I can be bothered.
This is not a sports podcast, apparently. Where do teams play?
If you like to hear 2 guys who don't know sports talk about things, you don't just have to listen to Bleacher Report. You can now listen to Talkin' Costner.
I know some sports.
At least we're not having surgeon generals and national COVID advisors have to refute what we're saying. I'd say we're not the worst.
We're not spreading
podcasts anymore. I think Joe's
miracle
beat
drugs
us.
or
exactly.
Saying not to get your vaccine. I got my vaccine. Did you get your vaccine?
I did last week. It was
moving.
Great. You got yours you got yours just before
I got
me.
It's almost full-fledged kicked in now.
I was just gonna say yours is about 2 weeks. Mine's only 5 or 6 days, but it's great.
I'm going to go lick every TTC poll I can,
And you know what? That's the way you beat COVID, because if you can't return to normalcy and do the things you did before this started, then I don't want to know what the future holds.
I can't live in fear. But I still will wear a mask because I'm courteous.
That's true. Yeah, you're not a total idiot, but
you know what they said? There was no way out of this.
I was just gonna try and figure out a bad segue, but you beat me to
But
it.
we found a way. Will Costner find a way out?
Here we go. Let's talk about a sexy thriller.
All right.
That's what we're here to do. We're here to talk about a sexy thriller today.
'Cause there's no way out. All right, No Way Out, 1987. A cover-up and witch hunt occur after a politician accidentally kills his mistress.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll have some things to say about that description.
Accidentally has some quotation marks. That's the IMDb thing. Don't come looking at me. I didn't write it.
Poor abusers. Like, this is basically what this is saying. But okay, we'll get into it. We'll get into it.
Well, yeah. I mean, it doesn't say who's doing the witch hunt. It's that abuser.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Before I'd seen the movie and read that description, I definitely thought like the witch hunt was against the politician who accidentally killed his mistress. I'm like, oh, that's rough for him.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. This is Hollywood, so.
All right, the key players. We've got Kevin Costner. You might know him from this
all of our other
podcast.
podcasts.
Gene Hackman, who was just coming off of Hoosiers, and follows this movie up with Mississippi Burning, Red.
Right.
He's a
Which I've
Superman.
never seen Hoosiers.
Oh, it's
I've
great.
always heard. I know.
You
I've
don't
always
know
heard.
sports.
Apparently not.
That's why you don't know what sports teams play.
That's true. And when we get to Bull Durham, you're going to know that even more.
Oh, baby.
Did I say Durham? I don't even know how to pronounce these things.
Oh, my God.
Bull Durham?
Get this guy off this Costner podcast.
We need a new host.
All right. We got Sean Young, who she's just great lady of the 80s. Blade Runner, Dune, Stripes, Wall Street.
I think most of us, well, I shouldn't say most of us. I feel like, because I looked at her, I was like, what do I know her from? And the thing I realized, of course, growing up in the 90s, is I know her from Ace Ventura.
Oh, yes.
In a really great performance with a
that
unfortunately
doesn't age
very
well.
Very transphobic ending. But I will say her performance is really great in Ace Ventura.
Yeah.
If not for that very, very distasteful ending.
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention it, but you did. So here we are. I was going to instead like to reflect on her career highlights like Blade Runner.
Hey, she didn't write the script. Not her fault that the script writers were super disgusting.
True. I love Sean Young. All I'm saying. Next, we've got one heck of a character actor. We got Will Patton.
Would you call him a character actor?
I would.
Okay.
I don't know. You don't think? Character actors aren't just like the big husky dudes, you know, Adam.
They're not just Brian Dennehy punching people in the stomach. Yeah. No, I just think of like, perhaps this is just my experience, but there's so many specific roles that I think of him in that are either lead or supporting. The biggest one being Remember the Titans, obviously, and later he would team up with Kevin to be. I think. Well, no, sorry, I shouldn't tip my hand. He is in The Postman, and I will just say that I thoroughly enjoy him in The Postman. I just think he has more leading or supporting roles than
he's
most
usually a strong
actors.
supporting. He's like a sidekick guy.
But yeah, he is in a lot of things that you go, oh, Will Patton's in this movie?
Yeah. We've also got George Zanza. Okay, here is a great character actor. This is like, this guy, I think George Zanza's up there. Maybe just misses the Mount Rushmore of character actors, but he's so good. He's in The Deer Hunter, Basic Instinct, Beast of War, Crimson Tide, and he's great in this. Give me George Zanza in any role.
Oh, he's great.
And then the movie was directed by Roger Donaldson, who had a really big career in the 80s, made The Mutiny, which is a great movie. Anthony Hopkins, early Mel Gibson, directed Cocktail right after this. You ever seen Cocktail?
Yeah, you know what? I've seen it. I've probably seen 60% of it just like on TV in various forms. I've never sat down and watched it because it's Kane, Cruz, and Elizabeth Shue. She's the girl in it.
Elizabeth Shue. Yep.
Yeah. No, I never sat down and watched it, but I've always heard it's like a great bad watch. And
it's a great bad watch. And then Donaldson seemed to kind of go down into the B movie territory in the 90s. Species, directed Species.
Hey, whoa, B movie. That's a solid B plus.
Okay, B plus. Dante's Peak, a movie we both love. Dante's Peak.
Were you there when we watched that last? Yeah, so we watched that with our friends Bill and Tyler when we were just entering into the lockdown last. I want to say like late March, like it was very early on.
Yeah.
And we were looking for some great bad movies. This was before we even talking about it for a living. And man, Dante's Peak, it stands up. It stands up.
It does. And then I'm really looking forward to he reunites with Costner in 2000's 13 Days. So
yes, yeah.
Keep your ear to the grindstone for that episode in about 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. In 2023.
And then just the last guy I wanted to give a shout out to, John Alcott, a cinematographer. It is his last movie. He Oscar award-winning cinematographer. He was he was Kubrick's guy. So he did Barry Lyndon, A Clockwork Orange, The Shining, and then this is his last movie. And I think he might be a dark horse.
Yeah. Have you seen Barry Lyndon?
Oh yeah, great movie.
Oh, like it's such an underrated movie. You have to really like settle in because it's the pacing is slow, but especially as you talk about just cinematography, like obviously like Alcott was just prolific and not just, I should say not just with Kubrick, but also it's really hard to work with Kubrick. So honestly, to do a really good job, you have to be a singular talent. I mean,
if you're the guy behind the camera of The Shining, like you've done something right.
So yeah,
and this is his final film. So it's dedicated at the end to him.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Stats. This movie was filmed April to June of 1986, released August 14th, 1987. 2 months after The Untouchables came out. It had a budget of $15 million. Untouchables had $25 million. So this movie was made for $10 million less. And again, like we said last time,
right?
American Flyers had a $23 million budget. So this movie cost $8 million less.
And like I learned last time, budget is not box office.
No, different things.
I understand things more clearly now.
So $15 million. It had an opening weekend of $4.26 million, worldwide gross of $35.5. It is number 25 on Costner's rankings, and if you adjust for inflation, it's 22. So not his biggest hit by a lot.
And that's Costner's rankings, not our more definitive power rankings here.
Yeah, that's just box office rankings. That's not definitive R rankings.
Yeah, but I will say so movies typically have to double their budget when you consider marketing to turn a profit. So I would say would have even at the time would have been considered a modest to middling success.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
In terms of return,
it made money, and for sure. All right, it's got a 7.1 on IMDb, a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 72% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a better critic score than The Untouchables, but not as good of an audience score.
Really? That's, I would say, surprising on the critics' side. But of course, Rotten Tomatoes, especially with older movies, like they're just collecting older reviews. They don't necessarily do an exhaustive search, but and I mean it's still an aggregate algorithm. But yeah. All right, good to know.
Yeah, I mean, a bit of a story behind this movie. A lot of people had Costner tapped to be the next guy because he didn't audition for this role. Right. He got asked by Orion, "What do you want to do?" And he brought the script over from a different place that Universal had pitched him on it or something like that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And he went, "I want to do this movie." And Orion just said, "Okay," and cast him and basically produced this movie around him being excited about the script. Pretty crazy.
And for those who don't know, so Orion is a huge
was a huge.
Yeah. It particularly was a huge production. It was a subsidiary of MGM, so it's an MGM production company. And in the 80s, everybody who's, I'm sure, listening to this has watched something from Orion Pictures.
Silence of the Lambs was Orion.
Yeah.
I think Platoon was Orion.
Yeah, Amadeus, Bull Durham, which we'll get to, Throw Mama from the Train, Mississippi Burning, which we mentioned. So, and later, of course, Dances with Wolves, which we'll get to when we close off this season. So
it sounds like a terrible, crass analogy, but I think they were of the 80s what like the Weinsteins were of the 90s, as like that like movie house that was doing exciting stuff that people wanted to work with.
Yeah, and started to just become, prolific, like juggernauts in the industry. Yeah. In terms of business, absolutely.
But then folded. But then they folded.
Yep.
All right, we're going to start with the movie. We got No Way Out. Act 1, cameras up. We got a shot of the White House pulling out. Great drone shot, just pulling out all the way.
Probably not a drone, actually.
It's not a drone. Probably a helicopter.
I mean, we could ask David Bryce, but I don't think those existed back then.
Yeah, check with David Bryce. Check with the CIA. Dude, they've been droning us for a long time, man.
Exactly.
But anyways, great helicopter shot. Then if you want to get technical, if it were me, I would have done it with a drone. Of Washington, the White House, all the way down to this little safe house out in the suburbs, in the boonies of DC, and we see Costner, who plays Commander Tom Farrell, is getting interrogated by this big galoot who just crushes his coffee cup and spills coffee all over himself.
Yeah, like you're not. So he crushes a mug in his hands, which is like
it's like an Odd Job, like Bond villain tactic.
But he's not presented as this like hulking muscular. He's kind of presented as like you know that scene in Men in Black at the beginning where he's being interrogated by like the other like kind of rotund police officer. Like he's just sort of presented as like this sort of like goof detective. But he crushes a mug, and it's a weird choice. But I mean, it's a moment. This movie is full of moments.
It doesn't look like intimidation.
No, because he gets all scattered and he's like, because
he gets coffee all over himself because it's full of coffee. Anyways, so he's getting Costner. Tom Farrell is getting questioned by these two guys about where he met the Secretary of Defense, and he eventually gets up and he walks over to a two-way mirror and goes, "When's he coming out?"
Yeah. And he's in his navy whites. We can see that there's blood on his shirt. He looks somewhat disheveled, so we can see
dropped right in the middle of something.
Yeah, exactly. Something has just got really gone down. He's looking through that apparently one-way mirror, saying when's he going to come out? And that's where we begin.
Smash cut 6 months earlier. I don't even know what a smash cut is. That just sounds cool. Smash cut 6 months earlier.
Yeah, no, you got it. It's just like straight to.
Okay, cool. We're learning the lingo on the pod here, buds.
We're only two guys trained in film.
Hey, I don't know about you, but I didn't do so good in school.
Oh, boy.
And then we got Tom Farrell. He's getting out of the limo. He's no longer in his navy whites, but he's in a nice formal suit. Yeah. He's got all his medals decorated him. He's at this big...
He's got like the 5 collars, like the very formal gala ball wear for an officer.
Well, yeah, while still letting people know that, this guy sails the 7 seas.
He does. All 7 of them.
That's what the Navy does. And he's at this big political gala. I don't know. It's for the new administration.
So it's the inaugural ball. So this is the the day of the inauguration. Is that good? It's the day of the inauguration, which is why they're mentioning, oh, congratulations on 4 more years. Right. Everybody's kissing ass to the new administration because whether they were for them or against them, these are their new bosses for the next 4 years.
These are the guys, and he sees his old classmate Scott Pritchard, played by Will Patton. They have a little conversation. Clearly, Tom has gotten an invitation from Scott to come. He wants to introduce him to his boss, who's the Secretary of Defense, played by Gene Hackman.
David Bryce.
Scott's just clearly a company man, just like worships the ground that Hackman walks on. Just says he's I would do anything for him. I would die for him. When Bryce blows off Tom Farrell, Pritchard's like, this is an old classmate I wanted to introduce you to. He kind of blows him off. Tom's like, oh, he has a great warmth. And Scott Pritchard's like, he's a genius. The normal rules don't apply. This guy is like just a big kiss ass. Yeah, he says,
He's the most extraordinary person I've ever met in my life. If it came to it, I'd lay down my life for him. Is that a job requirement?
we just see the classic Costner smarm, just delivering just the sarcastic. I don't really play that game, but I'm charming enough that if I wanted to, I could.
Yeah, and as we'll talk about later on the Who Could Have Kevin'd, I think something that only Costner of the people who were considered for this really could pull off. And I think what makes this character really, really work is that Costner smarm, goofiness, sense of humor, irreverence to it. And also as Kevin and Jean meet, two men who would in the past and future be integral parts of the Superman movie universe with former Lex Luthor and a future
I did put the Superman connection together.
Yeah. So there you go. Hey, you know what? Don't forget. I know how to Google things. So
Tom is bumming around this inaugural ball, and he catches the eyes of Sean Young, who plays Susan Atwell. He kind of waltzes over to her, saying, "You're real impressed by me. Come have a drink with me." He doesn't even say, "Come have a drink with me." He's got the confidence to just go to the bar, and she follows him. He orders some stoolie straight up and basically cuts to the chase. They're like, "Let's get out of here." We get the sense of Susan's really, she's really cynical. She's kind of making fun of this whole gala.
You're pretty cynical.
Adequate to the occasion.
Cynical, but also definitely a fun, free spirit. Doesn't appropriately cynical, in that she's surrounded by politicians, but also a free spirit, and that we can tell right away she doesn't take herself or the whole event too seriously, and so it's very endearing.
Yeah,
as a character.
And when Tom asks her to let's get out of here, she's got this great line of,
"My date's not gonna like that much. But what the hell? His wife will be delighted."
So right away, we know that she's kind of there because she is somebody's arm candy, but also has to just exist in the periphery.
And I think the first great example of I think this is a super tight script. We get moments. A great script has exposition built into character development, and this is the first example of that, where we both learn about her as a person and also her situation, plus we're getting a development of their dynamic together. What are these two people like when they first meet each other? And I think both Costner and Young and the script just really this opening scene is just really tight.
And then it goes straight into the sex part of the sex thriller.
Hey-o. For all people watching, FYI, get into some adult situations here.
At about the 5-minute mark, you don't have to wait this movie out long. If you don't have to fast forward. You don't have to, just 5 minutes. But they make some passionate love in the limo.
Is it a limo, or I think is it a town car?
I don't know. Okay,
I don't know. It's got a partition window.
Yeah, it's got a partition window. They got to
go to our Patreon for our talking different vehicles, and we'll discuss that.
I don't know the difference between a town car and a limo. Sue me.
It's just not that long.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
So anyway, they have sex in the back of a car.
They have sex in the back of a limo. The limo
and
driver,
they're clearly very authentically attracted and engaged in each other, beyond just a physical level. It's very sweet.
And they end up going to Susan's friend Nina's house because we don't really know it at this moment, but she can't really go to her apartment because the man that she has an affair with kind of pays for everything. So she kind of asks, hey, Nina, can I stay here? And we meet Nina, and she meets Tom. That's going to come back later. Don't forget, those two know each other.
She sees him, learns his name. Nina goes off and gives her apartment up to Susan and Tom.
Smash cut. sometime later. I don't know how. I don't know how long later.
That is a smash cut.
Tom is shipping off for another tour with the Navy. We get the sense, him and Susan have been together. They've formed a relationship. She's sad to see him go. While Kevin's out on the seas, he does some hero shit. Saves a guy.
Yep. Saves a guy from falling over the bridge, from falling over the bow.
The boat. I don't know.
Yep.
And so he's making waves.
Oh.
Didn't even mean that one. And then back in Washington, Bryce and Pritchard meet, and they want to sink this program for this new Phantom submarine that they know is a big expense that doesn't actually work. It's supposed to kind of keep up with the Soviet subs and their kind of ghost sonar technology, but they know it doesn't work. So they want to sink it, and Bryce finally remembers, hey, didn't you introduce me to that Farrell guy? He's a big war hero now. He used to work in naval intelligence. He could be a good guy to have, kind of our inside guy with the intelligence community.
Yeah, they want him both for the fact that he does bring some like skill and expertise, and and also like as a political move, he's now he's been in the newspaper as a hero, so he'd be a great chip to have in their favor. So they decide. So even though Bryce had blown him off before, they decide like he'd be a great guy to bring him in. And of course, at this point, like Will Patton is, he's a friend of his. He's been trying to get him in here, so he's all the happier to have Tom come in and become essentially part of the office.
Yeah, and then we cut to Farrell. He's now in the Philippines. He's kind of off duty. He's looking just like pure. What I love about Costner in this is that he's like one part Gardner Barnes. And then like one part like JFK, it's just like, and maybe it's because it's like a spy thriller and there's espionage and deceit, but like you can see Costner playing like all the different sides of that he can play well. Yeah, I think it's great, but he's definitely in like Gardner Barnes mode. He's out drinking in the Philippines.
This is peak Gardner Barnes mode. Yeah, absolutely. He's in the Philippines. He's in a strip club. He's trying to make a collect call and can't make it. He rips a payphone off a wall. They all celebrate. Like this is basically the opening scene of Fandango.
I want to make a running category as well. And this isn't just for the Costner movies. Any movies.
Costner party guys?
Well, no, like things that get you kicked out of a bar. That if you do, because in movies,
that's a good one. Yeah,
endless. And like ripping the payphone off, and then he just like orders another round. Like, no, that you're out.
Yeah, just destroying the property of this bar. Like it would be,
and then everybody cheers.
And nobody like says boo. Yeah, like if I just like threw a table against a wall, in a club, and people were just like, this guy's amazing.
This guy's a party animal.
I think they'd be calling the cops, and the security would be tackling me within an inch of my life.
Yeah, and the reason he like rips the payphone off the wall is because he's trying to call and get a hold of Susan, and once he finally gets through on the payphone, she picks up and hangs up immediately, and we see that who is her boyfriend, the man she's having an affair, the other man? It is Gene Hackman. It is David Bryce. That's the man. That's the powerful man she's having an affair with.
The to-be boss now.
Yeah.
And the Secretary of Defense of the United States of America.
You might say that sparks some intrigue.
Well, you might say there's increasingly less ways out of what's about to occur.
Yeah, the ways out are shrinking. We're taking down exit signs as we speak.
Oh boy,
there's no way out. All right.
Just as we go in, so like, how do you feel about the opening of this film? We're through Act 1 now. What are you thinking? What do you think at this point?
I love it. I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah, that's fine.
This beginning, it just sets it up perfectly. Yeah. I love Costner in it. I love him and Sean Young together. They have incredible chemistry that is really simple.
That's great.
And good. This is not very much of the movie. This is maybe like
the opening
6
minutes.
Yeah. And it's like, boom, I've got it. Okay, I know what the problems are.
Yeah.
And with also going, I don't know what's going to happen. There's lots of twists and turns to occur. I was into it immediately.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that they moved so fast through Susan and Tom's relationship at the start. When you said you're like, they've been together for a while, I'm like, oh, that actually does make sense. But I even thought, I'm like, oh, they were just together for like a weekend or something like that. But the reason why even I still bought it as a relationship, even though I thought it was maybe even a weekend, is like you said, Sean Young and Kevin Costner just have this like brilliant chemistry.
Yeah, they're
and
very
I think
good
that
together.
that's something that we go on to see through Kevin Costner's career. Is I think there's something to be said for, you see when two actors have chemistry, and there's a certain like X factor that Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, that there's something that you just like can't even articulate, that there's some pairs that have incredible chemistry, and there's some that when you have a really great actor, it's there. And that's not a slight against Sean Young, because I think she is really great in this movie. But I think that what we see in Kevin Costner's career is he can generate chemistry with so many different types and different actors. I think this of what we covered so far, I think this is really the first big example with that. Obviously, he has really great chemistry in a non-romantic way with Sean Connery in the last film we just did, Untouchables. And I really think through Costner's relationship with Atwell, who as we'll get to, is not long for this film. He is able to establish such a strong rapport that it really solidifies him as this guy can be your everyman, good guy hero. He can be your romantic lead. He can be your anti-hero. I just think that he has something in Costner that's unique to other actors.
Yeah, I think like what you just said about like why his performance is so engaging is because he is like showing that he's like cock of the walk swagger guy. He's showing that he's like romantic lead. He's showing he's sex symbol, and he's showing that he's like an action star. And it's like all of those things. And the movie, unlike The Untouchables, unlike Fandango, unlike Silverado, it really rests almost solely on him, this movie.
Absolutely.
Everything is him, this movie. Even though he's got like a great supporting cast, this is his movie.
Moving on. So Tom is able to come back to Washington, of course, because now he has the job. He gets the job with David Bryce. So he's back in Washington, which means he's able to be back with Susan again, and they pick up right where they left off. This is a great we're in the honeymoon phase, puppy love, joking around. She takes a photo of him on like not like the 90s Polaroid that we think of as millennials, as the one that shoots out the mouth in the front, but the truly old school one that comes out the side that you have to peel the negative away from. She takes a Polaroid of him, and he goes, no. And he goes, he pulls it away. He goes, I did this too early. I ruined the photo. He's looking at it. It's not really developing. He crumples it up, throws it on the floor. They have a roll in the hay. We move on to the kind of first meeting with Bryce and Farrell in a work capacity. Farrell's informed that he's going to be the liaison between the CIA and the intelligence communities and the Defense Department, specifically because he's trying to make these cuts and get his administration and his agenda moving.
Yeah, he wants to get the like real stats on the Phantom sub because he knows they're going to like make up the numbers. He wants like the raw data so that they can present the opposite case.
Yeah. So Farrell's role is to work the CIA, and specifically the CIA agent O'Brien, to try and basically get as much information as they can, or at least be able to build a case if they don't give him information to use against them. He does a great job in his first meeting. in front of the CIA agent, not really asking the questions that he should be.
He plays dumb. He's like, I'm just getting my bearings. I don't really know what I'm doing here. Like, no, I'm too green to really ask you anything yet. But then as soon as he's like, oh, there is one thing I guess
he does the Columbo where the guy's about to leave and he goes, one more thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then as he leaves, he just goes, I could use the raw data from this, even if it's not done, give me what you got. And he even impresses Pritchard in that moment where he goes, well, I'm supposed to be subtle, right? Great scene, great scene work, especially I love, as we'll see next season. I think Costner and Patton accent each other so well.
They have great scenes together in this movie. They've got like 2 or 3 just incredible scenes together. Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, as we'll get into, like, I think that I was going into this expecting the real kind of heavy lifting to be scenes between Gene Hackman and Kevin Costner. And Kevin Costner has commented on how much he reveres Gene Hackman and loved working with him. And he's said in a few occasions he believes Gene Hackman is the best actor that he's ever worked with. Having as an audience member, I think that this, in the way that we said this movie rests on the shoulders of Kevin Costner, his wide receiver, the guy that's right there, who's really the truly, I would say even more than Sean Young, the most important supporting role is Will Patton.
Yeah.
So life in Washington moves on. Tom is getting pretty upset. He knows, of course, as he knew from their first meeting, that Susan has a relationship, has an acquaintance, a liaison with another man who's clearly he knows is married and assumes is someone high
a politic guy, yeah,
a politician, and so as
that's the word for a politician.
That's right. So she reveals that it is David Bryce. Farrell, of course, says, that's my boss. That's my new boss who I just was appointed to serve as I came to Washington. That's the reason that I'm here and we're able to be together again.
And I think he expects that to land more on her when he's like, I work for him. And she's like, well, so do I. And it's just kind of
great
like,
line.
Yeah, she just plays it so great of like, that's the situation. That's what it is. Like, and that's all it is. For me, it's work. I work for him. Yeah, it just like really undercuts this, like everything that's been kind of going on relationship wise and the lovey-dovey. It's like, yeah, but I'm a realist at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that's, whether the writers in the 80s knew this or not, I think that's a great piece of Sean Young's character. And we'll get into there's definitely problematic 80s of its time pieces of this movie. Never at any point does Susan Atwell, Sean Young's choice to live this life, never is that a weakness in like her character or who she is. And even as we'll get into the moment of her untimely demise, she is never this damsel in distress.
No.
And so I think I really appreciated it. And that could be a little bit script, but I think that probably comes from Sean Young's performance a lot, where she radiates a strength and an anchoredness in who she is, who the character is, that is, I think holds up to this day really well. And I think that scene and that line specifically, that holds up really well. Here 34 years later. So, they acknowledge this is the situation, but obviously they still are clearly in love. They take a romantic weekend trip. They go to the cottage country. They go to Annapolis. They pose as Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Perhaps a prescient reference later to Angelina and Brad's film. Which, have you seen that movie?
No, I haven't. I missed that one.
It's all right. I saw it in theaters, and it's all right. So anyway, Farrell, now is a as a Washington dude. He's throwing money around. He's tipping the bed and breakfast guy who is dressed in like
I know
for this whole movie.
Yeah, I know.
In like colonial, like I think he's from Barry Lyndon. I think that John Alcott just took a cast member from Barry Lyndon.
Broke into the costume department of Barry Lyndon and was like, how about this?
Yeah, literally. So, and which again, okay, so you're like, okay, they're in Annapolis, they're in a bed and breakfast. But spoiler alert, later, like months later, he's at the Pentagon and he's wearing the same outfit. And it's
he just came right from work. I
guess. Oh my God. But so is the boat guy.
It's not months later. It's only like a week, the next week.
Okay, but do you change your clothes in a week?
Well, but if you,
I know you and I don't, but we've been in stay at home.
It's his work uniform.
I guess. I don't know.
He doesn't say, do you mind if I go get changed? They're like, no, you got to come to the Pentagon with us right now. He tips the bellboy a lot, and the guy's like, oh, thanks, mister. And then he's like, are you two newlyweds? I like Kevin being like, you can leave now. He's just like, get out of here, kid.
Yeah,
we're gonna have sex.
Not unlike the we didn't even mention it, but the Tom. Was it Tom? George? Whoever the town car.
Bill, I think.
Bill, the limo driver was.
Like, hey, Bill, you mind closing the?
Yeah, nice to meet you. Get out.
Yeah. And I like how because they want to go sailing while they're on this weekend. I like Costner just his first thing. Like, I want to rent a boat.
Hi, hey there. We want to rent a boat.
Just a great delivery. The guy's like, all right. He flashes money around. He's like, I want to rent, the nicest boat. And he's like, oh, that's my boss's boat. He just keeps on flipping out bills. Yeah. He's charming. No. He's having a great time. He doesn't know the trouble that's about to come. He doesn't know there's no way out.
You know what? Only we know that at this point. They get back from their lovely weekend. Oh, and we should mention too, as they're heading out on their romantic weekend, his quirky artist landlord.
Yeah, he keeps the mail for him when he's away, and
we've seen him in now a couple scenes. He fetches the mail. He's just this kind of like friendly, maybe a little bit nosy guy. Is saying, "Oh, where are you going? And what are you doing? Oh, is this a romantic weekend? Oh, I guess I shouldn't ask." And so clearly they have a good friendly relationship. He blows them kisses, wishes them well as he's leaning out the window. And so we just get this sense of, he's a nice guy. He's got a nice, quirky, artistic, we think at this point, maybe Eastern European landlord. And that's all to think about.
And there's nothing more underneath that. Keep peeling that away.
Nothing more. Don't look deeper. So we go on. They get back from their lovely weekend. They get into Susan's house. As soon as they get back, I think it's Nina who's left a message. And immediately Tom's like, "Oh, it's the guy calling," and she says, "Oh, like no." But as soon as that happens, they look outside, and here comes this expensive sports car coming up.
Might be a town car. Is this a town car?
Might be a town. Maybe it might be. Is this a Cadillac? Is this
looks like a Cadillac? Is a Cadillac?
Do you think it has? Is this does it have a combustion engine? Is this the combustion? Is this an electric car?
Is that 4-cylinder or what?
Is this electric? Is this Ed Begley Jr. 3 years later?
Is it amphibious?
Yeah. This is an aqua car. So David Bryce has shown up. Basically, she's just gotten back. And he shows up at the house immediately. They've just had this lovely weekend, and she's, immediately distraught because she realizes like he's already upset about this.
Yeah, Costner's kind of pouting, and it's actually like I actually love the way they treat this because Costner is pouting, and she like just like as much as she tries to appeal to him at first, like she makes fun of him. She like kind of like it's Sean Young's very charming. She like flashes her skirt at him and like kind of mocks him. It's
moments.
like she's very charming in this scene. And then Costner, that's when Gene Hackman does pull up, and then the stakes change, and she's no longer playful. She's now like, oh shit, no, you actually need to leave, please. Like I'll break up with him eventually, but you can't be here.
Yeah, she gives him the moment where she says, like,
please go. I promise I'll work everything out, all right? Tom, please.
Why don't you fucking go down and beg him not to come in?
You want me to say it? I'll say it. Tom, I'll leave him. I promise I will. I'll leave him. I love you.
You know, he's a proud now, you know, Department of Defense worker and naval officer. Like, I don't sneak out the back. Like, why don't you tell him to wait and I'll walk out the front door? But of course he, you know, that's his frustration getting to him. And in the end he does decide, okay, I'll leave out the door because he cares about her. But as he goes out, he has this moment where he clearly chooses to kind of stop in his tracks. He's just, you know, not even down the block. Like, he's behind this like apartment building. So, you know, 15 feet away, just not in the light. He's kind of cast in darkness and silhouette. And he just stands there looking at David Bryce, looking at Gene Hackman, basically kind of making this like macho point of, hey, I'm the guy sneaking out the back right now. And so Bryce notices him, doesn't notice who he is, just sees there's this guy looking. And you're even led to believe, like, are you sure that he even knew who this guy was? But he definitely makes a point of seeing there's this guy looking at him. He goes into Susan's apartment. They get into a huge argument because he knows that she was with someone all weekend. She says it's nobody important.
It's of no importance.
I'm sure it's of no importance to you whom you sleep with, but it's of considerable importance to me.
And that's where, so then Gene Hackman, David Bryce, hits her. They start getting in a fight. She goes upstairs to grab the phone in her bedroom to call 911. He rips the phone out. He's grabbing her. Just a horrendous act of abuse. And he grabs her, takes her to where the staircase is. She says, you know,
that's where she says he's not a pig like you. That's where,
she says he's not a pig like you. He slaps her and knocks her over the railing to the first floor through a glass dining table, causing her to fall over the balcony and die. So she crashes in the glass table. He kills her. Thus ends 44 minutes in the film. Susan Atwell. And I just want to say at this point, we only got, honestly, screen time, probably 20 minutes max of Susan Atwell. Sean Young just has an incredible performance in this movie.
Yeah, she does. She's really good.
She's gone by before the end of the second act. And she's just fantastic in this movie. And this ends her character. Bryce calls Pritchard to help. He's ready to go to the authorities, and Pritchard convinces him that they can cover this up. They can come up with a story where her lover was this Russian spy who's known as Yuri.
Yeah, this kind of conspiracy theory that everyone in the agency is sure that there's some sleeper agent who's been working in the intelligence community or in the state security department, that like this Russian spy named Yuri
this white rabbit that they've been chasing named Yuri, and that this was her lover, and he's infiltrated the intelligence community. And even if they find out that Susan was connected to David Bryce, they can cover it up by saying it's national intelligence because this other man was a Russian spy. So thus ends Act 2. We say we really get into the thick of it now, and Susan has now left us.
The first 45 minutes could have just been like a lover's drama. Like, it could have been like, just sets up that relationship really well between those two. And obviously we know like there's a triangle there that's going to cause some drama, but this movie just like really like right pivots on a dime right here.
Yeah, really deftly, I would say, deftly.
And I had forgotten that I had read the IMDb bio, so I forgot about the dead mistress thing. So I was like, oh, damn. Like, Sean Young didn't seem like the setup of a premise of a movie. Do you know what I mean? Like she seemed like the movie. And I think it gets a little lost throughout the rest, you know?
I agree.
But that I think could have come back more, like Tom Farrell's hurt and remembering this woman.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great setup. I mean, apart from like dead woman being the premise of a movie, it's really well written. It's a really good movie.
We're seeing just like a really tight thriller, romantic thriller, honestly, like espionage, political thriller.
Yeah.
And I think the story is one of the strongest.
Yeah. What I like about it is that it being a spy thriller, it doesn't have the spy thriller devoid of the politics. Like it really feels like, oh, this is how the CIA actually works inside Washington. It doesn't like divorce it from like a Jason Bourne kind of superhero version of espionage.
Here's the nitty gritty of like politics and of like making alliances and having to deal with like eat breakfast around people that are out to get you, and how do you deal with that?
And really, you also get the sense that, like, you know, Bryce really just wants to tank this Phantom sub because he thinks that the Senator Duvall is an annoying prick and he's the one like spearheading it. You know, like you also get like the pettiness.
Yeah, exactly. Of Washington politicians.
Yeah, and that's what actually all these resources go into: hiding, covering up the murders of mistresses, and you know, sewering. Spending programs because you don't like the other guy.
That's clearly not how it operates now. I'm sure that
no. They've really cleaned it up.
Yeah, exactly.
The next day, we get Farrell and Pritchard with Pritchard and Bryce, and Pritchard is kind of telling him, like, there's this woman. She was killed by a Russian spy named Yuri, and he needs to be the lead on this investigation. And he opens up the file, and of course, he recognizes Susan's body. Yeah, this is really well acted, him reading this and just like...
Yeah, I agree. This is the first scene where I think you really see one of those scenes where it rests on, like, if this scene is played, not even just if it's played poorly, but if this scene just doesn't like fire, if this scene just doesn't work, I think that a lot of what follows just kind of falls apart. But he just nails this moment where he opens up a dossier, just assuming he's at a day at work, and you know he's in Washington. He's also a Navy guy. You know, folks who die, that's nothing new to him. So he's just going in as, okay, business. This is a Monday, business as usual. And then all of a sudden, and what's great is I actually love that they don't show you a shot of the folder where like there's the picture of Susan Atwell, the little like file photo or investigation scene photo. You just watch Costner's eyes like open up this folder, assuming it's business as usual, and then kind of scan, and then have this moment of like all of a sudden you see it wave like wave over him where he's looking at the woman he loves who's he's realizing is dead.
And then he like gets up and goes to the bathroom and just like crumbles on the floor. It's really good.
Great scene. Not overacted, not contrived at all. No. Like even by like, listen, we're talking like this is 34 years ago. So like I can make some leeway for things that to us now in our conventions look a little contrived. I think the scene holds up so well in the bathroom.
Yeah. And even Hackman, I like his whole, you know, we also see his anxiety too. It's so nice when you have villains who are like insecure because the thing they're trying to do is like crazy. He's the desperate one. So him being like, our own people don't even believe us. Like, Jesus.
That was a great line. I'm so over like confident villains. I'm not saying there's no room for it or there's no archetype that you can have that. But like, that immediately, exactly, that he's telling Pritchard, like, he's immediately insecure. Like, this guy knows that we're full of crap. And he's just starting to get shaky. And Patton's then, it's great because then Patton becomes the one who's trying to like calm him down. This scene is great.
It's also such a great premise to have like the guy who they're looking for be the guy who has to lead the investigation on himself. Costner is getting all up and learning of all the evidence that is getting dug up that he knows will point to him. So, they start investigating Susan's bank records and credit cards to see where she, had spent money that weekend, and then like her stomach contents to see where she ate. And then there's the negative Polaroid that Pritchard had found in his sweep of the thing, and he places it with the evidence.
We didn't even specifically mention that, but when Bryce reveals, he's like, I've killed this woman. Yeah. It's Pritchard who goes and basically just says, I'll be the cleaner. Yeah. He goes to the house. He takes away any, what he thinks of as potentially incriminating evidence.
And so, we learn from this negative of the Polaroid that like they can do image analysis or something, then they can uncover it. It's a slow process. So there's all these things that are set up so well, like we say about like the tension of like, these pressure points. You find a pressure point and you squeeze.
And going right back to Brian De Palma, Mission Impossible. He's going to be in the new Mission Impossible, the guy who played Kittredge. Did we talk about that last time?
Oh no, that's great.
He's back in the new one, which I'm super excited for.
Cernsey.
Henry Cern.
And so they're going to be doing this image analysis. It's so good to find all these things that like, there's this going against him, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this like ticking clock of the moment that photo gets to a certain resolution, they're going to be able to tell it's him. And then this is probably like my favorite aspect of the movie. And with so many spy movies, they can oftentimes be, CIA propaganda. They can really just.
Yeah.
You ever heard of this?
I mean, I love my Marvel movies. They're literally co-financed by the U.S. military. So
exactly. And you've got John Krasinski fucking doing whatever is Jack Ryan, doing his PR puff pieces for the CIA. Like,
good news, militarism is back in fashion.
God, get out of here, Krasinski.
Seems like a nice guy, though.
Yeah, seems like a nice guy. Just like
maybe just needs to smarten up a bit.
Just cashing those checks off of Venezuelan coups.
Well, we lost all our Republican listeners, if we had any to begin with.
Kevin Costner's got some Republican fans for sure. All I want to say is everyone talks about liberal Hollywood and their liberal agenda, but there's a lot of movies that are just financed by the military. So next time you want to make that argument.
As deep as we want to go into liberalism and conservatism, it's all capitalism when we're talking Hollywood, baby. So it's all serving the same God.
It's all those Benjamins. But what I like is that he's introduced to these two agents. Scott says, they're associated with special forces.
Who are these guys?
They're associated with special forces.
Well, I don't understand what that means. What's that mean, associated?
That means exactly what I said. They were formerly in special forces, and now they're associated.
Where? Honduras, El Salvador?
Somewhere down there.
What, you with the death squads? Were they with the death squads?
It's possible.
In other words, and they're assassins.
These were Contra assassins, which at this moment, like, this is big.
Yeah, I agree. Like,
for them just to be like, the CIA actually just kills villagers in South American, Latin American countries, and he's just like, these guys are assassins. He just knows exactly what these guys have been brought in to do. That as soon as they find this guy, they're going to kill him because they don't want to catch him alive.
Yeah, this is before Rage Against the Machine would really talk about this, but I will say. Not that this video game is a critique, but the Contra video game did exist on Nintendo Entertainment System at this point, which of course was, I'm sure, also probably co-financed by the military, but was hilariously just exposing that this is a thing that the U.S. military would just like basically commit coups.
The more you know. All right, and so it's just like we see like the pressure added on Farrell, and he goes into Pritchard's office and they have this big argument being like, what's going on? What's the deal? This is all getting way out of hand. And Pritchard's like, look, Susan Atwell knew David Bryce. They had a relationship, but it wasn't him. It was some other guy. And Costner's like, well, we've got to turn it over. Like, we've got to turn this investigation over to the FBI. And Pritchard's not having any of that. He's basically like drawing a line in the sand.
Tom, if it were your intention to do anything to bring down David Bryce, then I'd have no choice but to make sure that you didn't get away with it.
Thank you for the warning.
And he's like, we're going to catch him, and then we're going to deal with them. And Costner's like, deal with them how? Like those two guys out there? Like that? And he's like, this guy's a murderer. This guy's a spy. You know, wouldn't that be justice? He's like, shit, no, that's me. You're looking for me. It's just
exactly.
like these two in this scene, they're incredible. Like,
oh, so good.
Both having a secret they're trying to cover up. Both like having lies that they can't tell.
Different secrets that they don't know are connected.
Yeah.
I think like that is truly like great craft by both of them, where they're not like to not telegraph anything in this scene. But and then also then of course props to Dawson in this scene where we as audience know the tension, the dynamic that goes beyond just the tension that they're anxious over what they each know. We also know that the intersection of what they know is a big problem for them as characters, as individuals, as friends at this point. I think it's great. And I think that, again, it goes back to this is a really great script. And it's buoyed even further by the fact that there are great actors executing it. But I think this is where we really start to see that where we've seen some Costner movies where there's complicated plots before. But I think this is the one, as we mentioned, that handles it the best. That in terms of pacing and in terms of movement and the ensemble cast of characters, everybody can carry their weight. And what is essentially like a pretty complex story with a lot of twists and turns. I think for the most part, we'll talk about towards the end, but for the most part at this point, early in the second act, I think feels very effortless.
Next, we got a scene between Marshall, who's the head of the CIA, played by Fred Thompson.
Yeah, future Republican primary presidential candidate and future Die Hard 2, same almost role exactly. Fred, at this point, billed as Fred Dalton Thompson. There's a great character actor right there.
There is a great character actor. He's plays the head of CIA, and he has this meeting with Agent O'Brien because, Pritchard and Farrell kind of blew him off at the meeting they were supposed to have. And Brian's like, well, there's some covert going on at the Pentagon. The Secretary of the Defense Department, they're clearly investigating something. We think it has to do with the death of this woman, Susan Atwell, who we think is either Bryce's or Pritchard's mistress, to which Marshall says, can't be Pritchard's because he's a homosexual. And that's the first time we hear that.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, we can just acknowledge, so there's some gross stuff going on with the fact that then his sexual identity is used as an antagonistic piece where of course he's unstable and a terrible person because
this was a common trope. The lovelorn homosexual who's
exactly
who acts irrationally or out of devotion. Who's just a
deviant, right?
Yeah, and it's unrequited, and he's got this loyalty, unearned loyalty to this guy because he's actually in love with him. It's definitely a well-worn trope. I don't know. I think it was probably well-worn then as well. It's also just a bad trope. It's not one of those tropes you're like, oh, that's just bad because it's well-worn. It's just a bad trope no matter what. I don't think it sinks this movie, but it's not great.
And I think that's because I think Will Patton is such a talented actor that it doesn't fall into caricature and it doesn't become a driving force behind every scene.
And he never has some weird thing where he tries to make a move or he tries to and it gets rejected and then that's why he acts out.
And so exactly. So I think that LGBTQ plus characters can be villains, of course. So it's not the sense that he is or essentially becomes an antagonist that is the problem. I think that it's
his motivation for
exactly. It's the setup as this, which then does come around in a plot point later, which is doesn't need to be there. But I think that Will Patton, because he's a really great actor, I think that his performance helps steer it away from what would be an even more problematic character. But we can definitely acknowledge as we have in other movies. This is a piece of gross 80s trope that didn't have any place then and doesn't need any place now. But that's the character that we're working with.
And then Pritchard gets, they get the phone records and they know this woman, Nina, was the last to call Susan Atwell. And so Farrell and Pritchard go to Nina's apartment and, just to get asked, like, who didn't she know? Who did she hang out with? Again, we've got Pritchard, we've got Patton firing on all cylinders in this scene.
Oh,
this
scene is great. As is Iman. Everybody just nails this scene.
She's great in it. And, of course, asking, like, who was her boyfriend? Who was she seeing? And, she's looking right at Tom, and Tom's looking at her, and they know it. Yeah. And she doesn't say anything.
Great photography here, too. Great angles where we totally believe, like, we see she's obviously looking very obviously at Farrell, but because of the angle, you buy that Pritchard just sees her, like, being nervous and looking around.
And then, he finds her passport and it's like, oh, you're from South Africa. I see you don't have a visa. Like, I'm sure there's a reason you wouldn't want to go back to Johannesburg. And she's like, yeah. And then so she says,
I know who you are. I know who Bryce is. David Bryce. Is that the name you're looking for?
We're not interested in him. There's another man that we want.
We know about Bryce. We're not really interested in him.
Didn't really even want to say that, but yeah.
And then we see kind of Kevin Farrell in the background, taking flowers out of a vase, and he might smash the head of
which I didn't
Patton.
get at this point. All of a sudden, I saw him take the flowers out, and I was like, "What is he doing?" And then it wasn't until he grabs where I'm like, "It's this moment where he's about to throw all the cards on the table." And
eventually they leave. She's like, "Okay, I'll make a deal. I'll tell you, but I can't remember what she says. I don't know." They eventually leave her. She doesn't remember anymore. Oh no, what she says is that there's a new guy. He just came back into town. He works at the state.
Yeah,
that's what she says.
She kind of gives him enough information that he buys that. Right. She knew there was a guy, and she doesn't know any more than that. And
I remember.
So did you see this movie?
I've just been making it up this whole time. I've just been riffing with you.
Oh boy.
Oh god, it's not like I took fucking notes or anything. And this is why we only do this once a month. They go away, and as he returns back to the Pentagon, he's gotten a delivery of this new piece of evidence that was found under her car seat that's been delivered. And it is this jewelry box that Susan had told him about, that she had been given from David, that he got as a gift from a foreign minister. And he's like, oh, Bing, this is what will peg Susan to Bryce.
This will directly connect her because this was given by foreign minister, so this is of official record. I can connect this definitively from the Secretary of Defense to this now murdered woman, and that can show an immediate line of sight to her.
He says later, shouldn't gifts from foreign ministers have to be in a registry somewhere?
We find out that Tom, he's walking through the office. He notices that our two Contra assassins, it ends up in one of the great car and foot chase scenes of the movies. He knows they're going after Nina. He knows they're going to kill her. And this is where I will say, in terms of groundedness and realism, the movie it gets a little bit off the rails here, where essentially a federal agent and Navy officer steals a car from the Pentagon, crashes it on the way out, and then crashes it as he's chasing two either superior or equivalent agents.
I don't think they're superior. I think their whole idea is that they're not on the books. That's the whole idea.
They're the hit squad of his superior agent. He goes out on the highway, crashes a car on a freeway bridge to stop them. Engages in a foot and having said all of this is great. This is so well filmed. I'm just saying, in terms of Why isn't the entire police squad of Washington like coming after him at this point?
They would probably want everything like as hush hush as possible because they don't want any like spotlight on this investigation because they know this investigation is seedy as all hell. So
right.
I think the idea is like, yes, these guys are his superior's boys, but his superior can't like go like, yeah, those two Contra agents are mine. Like,
right. But he does create just like a massive, like full stop traffic jam on Washington
all
freeway.
I'll say is that like in terms of spy action-y chase movie scenes, like this probably does some of the least damage I've ever seen in an action movie.
Oh, no doubt. I'm just saying
there's worse
that,
paperwork in some other movies.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, later we see Kevin Costner's son Superman just destroy an entire goddamn city.
Yeah, there's some paperwork to do at the end.
There's a bit of paperwork to do.
To me, it doesn't stretch much.
Well, you're wrong.
It's a movie. Have you ever heard of a movie, Adam?
I am. This is a documentary. Is it
a movie? Documentaries also movies. Little tip.
I'm just saying that this movie had really sunk me into a good grounded place, and it's I feel a very well shot, a very action packed, thrilling chase. Not as realistic of a universe as I had been ingratiated into at this point. But hey,
Louise.
He gets onto the subway, just in a great scene, never get tired of it, where your hero gets on the subway and the doors close just in time for the villain to like punch the door. I'm going to get you. I'm going to kill you. That's a great moment. But also then somehow like takes a subway to the next spot. And as soon as he gets there, they're at the same time. Like what? They lost their car. What means of transportation do they have to catch up to him?
I don't know. The next subway, like they're not like 2 minutes later.
But no, because they meet him on the mall. Anyway, listen.
I don't know.
You're wrong. I'm right. Let's just accept that.
Good movie, great scene, great chase. I don't know what more you want.
We agree on that. Good movie, great scene.
It isn't overkill. It's all not like I liked it. It was great. But yeah, he gets to Nina at her workplace and is like, "You got to get out of here.
Yeah, you got to get lost.
You got to get lost. You got to get gone. Do not go home. These guys, they're going to try and kill you."
Yeah.
And he just tackles them, but then gets taken away by gunpoint because they're like, "Hey, man."
Well, he gets into like a good like.
Yeah, he does like a good like shoulder tackle and
slides down escalator, does another like rugby like to the gut. Like he's fighting two essentially assassins and helps Dina get away, and and that part is like a good realistic fight. So again, I like the scene. It's just I felt it was from a little bit of a different universe, and he goes back to the I guess it's the computer room, the sort of their NSA headquarters style place. It's the same kind of office as would be like 20 years later in 24, like an office with like lots of glass, all these like kind of tech nerds like working at computers.
They're the guys who are like trying to uncode this Polaroid negative. Yeah, and we had met we haven't mentioned him yet, but Sam, who's played by the incredible George Zanza.
So good.
He's so good. And he's in earlier scenes, and like him and Farrell clearly have a past relationship. They know each other. They're buddies. And
he knows his kids. Like they're very close.
And Farrell's, every step of the way has kind of been doing making odd decisions to try and stall the investigation. Like, and basically Farrell's goes and asks Sam, registered gifts from foreign diplomats. Could you print that off? Could you get that record? And he's like, well, I would have to do an official ask, information ask. He's like, can you just do it? Sam also reveals that her credit card that did come up, that it's been traced to this gas station that they were at, and that they've uncovered what blood type she is, and the photo is becoming clearer, and Farrell's just trying to stall, and like Sam's like, whoa, why are you being so shady? What's going on? Like every step of the way you have tried to hinder this investigation.
I think it's time we had a talk. I'm the one in the picture, Sam.
You?
Mm-hmm. Susan Atwell was the woman I've been seeing. I had nothing to do with her death. I was in love with her.
Yeah, which I think is a great like stroke in this movie where he doesn't save it to like the very end. Like they had this relationship, and also like it's a very logical and it's a smart motivation by this character to go, listen, I need allies here, and also I'm kind of cornered. There's kind of no way out at this point. And so he chooses to tell his friend at this point. And I think like a lot of movies have the misunderstood or persecuted lead, like hold that information, hold as much information as possible to the end. And I think it's a really great stroke in this script that it's completely logical at this point. Like if I was in his shoes and I'm looking at the whole deck stacked against me, I've got to find an ally. I've got to find someone who can help me. And so the fact in this moment, and they don't make it like, they don't make a meal out of the scene. It doesn't become like this emotionally pivotal moment. He just turns and he realizes like, I've got to tell this guy. Like, and so I think that's just a brilliant script writing piece. And in terms of direction, like point in this movie that you're like, yeah, I buy that. He would tell him at this point.
George Zanza immediately like orders them to like reverse the process on the photo to be like, I think we should be looking at this instead of this.
Yeah, to slow it down.
But it's working so well. And he like, I also like, he's like, just do what I say. And everyone's like, whoa, calm down. But you can tell like he's now caught up in a conspiracy that he doesn't like that he's in, you know, like when people give that information, it's like, it would be better if I didn't know what was going on here.
Because we've seen even in all the stuff that's happened so far, he hasn't been rattled, but in this scene, he's quite rattled. And so it's also great because we see the moment where he's, where this is not something that sits well with him. So they go on, and now we found out that the boat rental harbor master, who was the guy who rented the his boss's boat.
That's my boss's boat.
That's my boss's boat. We find out that he and the bellhop have both been brought in for questioning. And this guy is played by, again, man, so many great character actors. Great character actor, Dennis Berkeley, who is in a ton of stuff. We will see him later when we get to Tin Cup. He is one of the dudes.
Oh, yeah, he is. Yeah. So he's one of the golf range guys.
He's one of the guys.
One of the driving ranges.
You know, he's one of the guys early in Tin Cup, and he talks like this. So he and the bellhop, who that does make sense. He's in his uniform. He's still in his colonial Barry Lyndon garb. They come in to try and identify who this Yuri is. And so they decide, okay, the only way to do this, we can't. This is a huge building. It's a Pentagon. It's one of the
first the boat harbor master does see Farrell.
Yes, that's
he's
right.
Like,
that's
there
right.
he is, and then like Costner takes off. So then they like know he's in that building.
Right, exactly. And this is further proof that it makes no sense that they have to identify everyone in the Pentagon when this guy could have just said he's about 5'9", wearing navy whites with short hair, but they apparently need to let everybody who's a woman, who's a man of any size, height, or weight, they have to have him and Barry Lyndon personally inspect everyone who's leaving.
Yeah, they could have done the navy whites would have been a dead giveaway.
Like you saw what Flory was on, you saw what he was wearing, you saw his haircut. Come on. But you know what? I'm not saying I regret it, because I think that this is, in some ways we're falling off the wagon here, but in other ways it's like really good, like tension building and plot work here.
It is kind of interesting that like Farrell gets to avoid the investigation so much just because he's in control of it. Like he gets to like that
makes total sense.
Like is really great, where he's like, oh yeah, do this and do this and do this.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
And he is also the one ordering it. So that might also be why he's like, yeah, set them up at the exits. That will be,
that's true. That's true.
Make sure everybody who's leaving gets identified, because he doesn't want to be seen.
Yeah, I think that is a believable point. So, but Farrell is getting anxious, so he asks Sam he can't find the jewelry box that he knows.
He's got to print off this whole list, and it's like on that old printer paper. Yep,
yeah,
I did.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, we had a Commodore.
Rip the circle things off.
The side, like with the 3-punch holes all the way through. Yeah, we had a Commodore 1084, and which had like all the classic games. Which now I look back and I'm like, God, that was amazing. Like we literally had my dad had Space Invaders, Froggers, Frogger, Dig Dug. All the great games, and it would print off in that exact way where it was so sad. It was like bubble paper. It was so satisfying to rip the sides off. Oh, so good. So he can't find it. So he's saying, Sam, just put it in the system. Just say that it's in there. Sam agrees.
It's like the only way I can link those two. Like, you've got to put it in. Trust me. Really great scene. Like, Costner plays all of this unraveling, this desperation. And the writing to just go, there's like we say, like there's the photo, the blood type, there's the credit card.
Yep.
Now there's like the witnesses creeping on him. Like the fact that there's that many points of tension is just really good writing. Just like have another thing to twist the knife in. Yeah,
it just keeps building and building and building. So it does come to this natural crescendo where now the witnesses are entering the computer room, the room where he works. Farrell spills coffee down himself, so he goes, oh, I got to go change. So he has an excuse to leave the room as they're coming in.
Real fly excuse. And he plays it well, actually, because he's just like so annoyed. He's like, oh, Jesus Christ, I got to change. It was like, I don't know. If I were going to play that, I would be so transparent. It's like, guys, it's Cam. Like, I got to leave. I just spilled coffee. No, they can't see me. But he plays it well.
And I mean, hey, that's why Kevin is Kevin and you're not Costner. So.
And here I am talking about him.
Yeah, you're just talking. You're not Costner. You're talking Costner. So he goes, I got to go change in my office. So he goes down the hall to his office. But at the same time, of course, there's the second crew with Barry Lyndon. They're coming into the office. So he hops up into his vent in his bathroom, hides in it, is able to successfully avoid them. But at the same time, Sam thinks that Tom is off his rocker, and so he calls Pritchard. He goes, I know you're his friend, so I trust you. I just don't think that he doesn't reveal anything specific yet.
That's a mistake.
That's a mistake. And he just says, I just think he's off. He doesn't know what he's doing. So he meets with him in I guess the Pentagon has like a intramural basketball.
court. A big echoey gym.
Yeah, a big echoey gym where you just know you're like a gunshot is about to ring out here.
Yeah.
So he tells them what he knows about how Tom says Bryce was a mistress and he told him to insert something in the computer. So essentially this time Pritchard now knows everything. And
he's just like, I'm just trying to help him, but, I feel like I've helped him too far. He's not well. You've got to do something.
So he's just trying to be a friend, trying to be a good guy. Pritchard turns around, boom, shoots him in the chest.
No silencer, big O echo.
Yeah, again, this is where I'm just like, they're in the middle of the apparently South Gymnasium of the Pentagon. He shoots him
with a
revolver, and he goes over, and there's apparently no security cameras in this room. No one nearby that heard the shot. But it's a good scene.
Yeah,
at least story wise, photography wise. He shoots him. And moves on. At this point, Tom has printed out the now,
the
forged section of the gift of the box. But the assassins now know he's there because, of course, Pritchard has alerted them. He ends up in a chase, which, again, it's the Pentagon. I don't know why there aren't 150 damn troops that are cutting off every exit, but somehow it's just two guys against him, and he's able to outwile them and get into the office of the Secretary of Defense.
He orders them though. Like I like that where he's
That
like
part is
giving the
great.
order. He's like, "Let me in. I outrank you. Let me in." And like other guys are chasing down on him.
Yeah.
They're like the great shot of like the fire extinguisher to the face. Anytime you see one of those, you're just like, that's a dead man on the other end of that.
So good. Yeah, so good. Guy shouldn't have survived, but so good. So anyway, yeah, exactly. He gets into the Secretary of Defense's office, and this is where we're going to go into the final act where he's about to confront David Bryce.
Yeah, so he enters Bryce's office. He's got the printout. He's like, "I know you knew Susan Atwell. I know you had something to do with her death." And Hackman's like, "What are you talking about? I didn't know her. I had nothing to do with her." And he's like, "Well, how come there's a registry from a foreign minister gift that was in her house?" And he's like, "I didn't register anything." He's like, "Well, it's right here." Mm-hmm. Hackman's like, "Oh shit." And this is good because Hackman, for the rest of this scene, he's pretty quick to give up the game. Like
he gets like, "I'm got," and he immediately go like it's brilliant character work where he immediately. I mean, he's a politician. He knows how to be strategic, and so he immediately goes into like, okay, I've got to switch strategy here. I've got to switch my tactics here as a character and as a politician. I think it's great.
And then Major Donovan comes in and he's like, Yuri's got to be somewhere close. Mm-hmm. We just found Sam shot and killed by Yuri in the West Gymnasium. And then there's Pritchard, and Costner's immediately like slaps Pritchard down and is like, "You did it. You killed him."
Yeah.
And Will Patton comes back with just the great line.
You have no idea what men of power can do.
You have no idea what men of power can do. And it's just like bingo, like we're allowed to do whatever we want. I don't care. Go with the narrative or you're dead. And he's basically like starting to spin like this. Tom is Yuri. Tom was the guy you saw. And Gene Hackman, it's kind of interesting. Like Gene Hackman never listens to it. He never listens to Scott.
Yes, exactly. So a great scene work by Gene Hackman where he doesn't look back on the plan. He knows the plan that Pritchard had is dead in the water. Farrell knows, and I've got to change course. Like he's a brilliant politician at this point. And so even though Pritchard presents like a pretty plausible new story.
It's just like the consistent story. Like Tom is the guy. Like that is true. Oh, and at this point, the photo has also been revealed.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
It is Tom Farrell.
Yeah. So they have all the evidence, and as Pritchard says later, Tom, he doesn't have a shred of evidence to support his story.
He's really good at that.
But exactly. But Bryce is out on Pritchard's plan, and he's now looking at Farrell as, this is my new guy. I'm going to go with him. I'm going to ally with him right now to to try and get myself out of this.
And this is just great three-way acting scene of Hackman being like,
great scene.
You know, like Scott's always been a loyal friend, but he was always jealous. He was always jealous of me and Susan. Mm-hmm. He's always been loyal, and then
that clouded my judgment. That's why I went along with this.
And he turns to Scott and just said,
"This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. But I swear, I'll do everything I can to help you out. Everything. I'll get you the best lawyers."
David? He doesn't have a shred of proof.
This is Hackman and Patton just like with this brilliant work where he just does this, like, you and I as wrestling fans, we watch the Stone Cold and Bret Hart like double turn where you watch this turn where immediately you become so empathetic towards Pritchard. And at the same time, you're watching David Bryce become even more of a piece of crap.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh man, he's flipping on him like that.
As Hackman's like making his case to Farrell about why, Scott went overboard. It's all on Scott. Pritchard just yells out, "David!" and takes the gun to his head and blows his brains out.
Like Patton is so good. And again, this is where we're really getting into the problematic part of here is the gay character who is now apparently because of his orientation, at least implicitly, it seems that he's moving towards this like unhinged character. But I think Patton does as good a job as you can of bailing it out of there. If you stand back and go, this guy went from being like, I'll die for this guy and I'm part of this investigation and I'm going to be the guy to take down a Farrell, to in the span of like just a couple of lines of dialogue, just essentially feeling so distraught that he loses all faith in David Bryce and frankly loses all will to live. I think that most other actors that this could possibly tank the whole movie. And frankly, because of the writing and the bad trope that we've just identified, it should. But I think Will Patton does a good enough job of adding nuance and authenticity to this moment.
An argument for the writing of the movie, bad trope aside, I do think that line of like, you have no idea what powerful men can do, I think that does a lot to add in another clear motivation of what it's like to want to work with powerful people, work amongst them, and feel that power, have that power go to your head, which he clearly does. You know, he's bringing in Contras.
That's true. Yeah,
he's bringing in Contras and like that. He's like, I work.
Yep,
I'm the general counsel for the Secretary of Defense. Like that's huge. And then, oh shit, when that power that you talk about flips on you, it's like, oh, I am powerless. Now I'm nobody.
Yeah. That's true. And
so it does enough to complicate enough that it's not just like a jilted gay man who isn't received by the man who loves him. And then the major comes back in and just like, that's your man. He's dead on the floor. He shot himself. Farrell now back smash cut to that safe house.
Yeah, that we started the movie with.
And he's walking up to that mirror and going, when's he going to come out?
Yeah.
Who comes out from behind that two-way mirror? It is his friendly Eastern European landlord.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And he starts speaking to him in Russian, where Tom Farrell goes, please, it's been too long. I don't speak so fast. I haven't spoken in a long time. And I love this line where he's like, "Oh, you must long for the language of our writers, Dostoevsky and Chekhov." And I like that Farrell just says Solzhenitsyn, was like a guy who wrote like in the communist gulags, and he's like, "Ah, very clever. That's very smart. Yeah, even him too." It's it's a smart little funny little line. They're like, okay, we'll try and get you out of the States. You've been here too long. He's like, I did everything you wanted. I started a relationship with Bryce's mistress. I, did everything you want. I infiltrated. I got a job at the Secretary of Defense. Now I'm out. I'm done. And he's like, well, you can't just leave. You've got to come back. We'll take you to Russia. And he's like, no, I'm not going back. I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
And he's like, where else will you go? There is no way out. End of the movie. What do you think of that ending?
Yeah, I mean, this is where...
I kind of like it and kind of hate it.
I thought about this, and I was externally processing and saying, I think that the critique that I have is that the movie doesn't set up the twist well. And so, I just think my critique is that I didn't see it coming. And then I realized that the dumbest critique in the world of a twist is me saying, the problem is I didn't see it coming.
Right.
So at the same time,
he was Yuri after all, in case you haven't figured that out.
Yeah, exactly. So the movie, they only set up Yuri, midway through the movie.
Yeah.
Whereas now, in any, you think of let's talk blockbusters. If a Marvel movie has a twist they want you to know about, they set it up as a plot point or a prop or a subtle element in the first act, and this does not do that. And so I was like, oh, well, they didn't do that, so it's not good. But I'm like, well, that's actually not true. Like, the fact that they don't mention Yuri until later on is actually probably a strength, because I truly did not see this coming.
My critique isn't so much that I didn't see it coming or that it wasn't set up, because there are like a few things dropped in that you're like, and I've watched it 3 times now, so now it's easy for me to say, there are a few things like at the beginning when he's on the boat with the Navy, like they're supposed to be hunting down a sub, and it's him who wants to stop and not go further of finding this Russian sub. That he's
wow, I didn't think of that.
And there's
and
there's this kid in the Philippines who takes his bag, and he's like, and he lets them go, and then they mention that was a drop off in the Philippines.
And he specifically stops them from chasing that kid, yeah.
And there's one time he calls on a payphone to somebody saying, like, you need to get me out of here.
Yeah, that's towards the end, yeah. Yeah.
So there are a few things that make that are dropped in that are suspicious that you don't.
But I didn't think about any of them, honestly.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
My critique isn't that so much as like, is it a better movie if it focuses on him being in love with this woman who's killed? And
yeah,
I think it is.
I agree.
I think it's a way better movie if that's what it's about.
At the end of the day, you don't need this twist at the end. Like, it was enough for me that he had a woman who he loved who was murdered, and he helped, at least we assume, at least led to a trial for her murder.
Yeah.
So as much as I thought it was in terms of scene work was executed fine, and I like a twist where I don't see it coming, I just thought it added an unnecessary wrinkle that actually cheapened the impact of their relationship together, to then have to have him go, yeah, I was set up, but I actually did love her, and I'm not going back.
Also, like, it has a element too of like, no, I'm staying in America. It's like, you just saw how fucked the American government is. Like, if anything, you might be like, yeah, Mother Russia, get me the fuck out of here, like, no, that they don't have their issues, but geez, you know what I mean? Like,
I think Russia's a perfect country.
Yeah, especially at this era. Well, it didn't get any better in the 90s.
Yeah. Could it have gotten worse? Yep.
Yeah. I don't have any take other than like, I think it isn't as good as if there's focus on him loving this woman that powerful men will fucking destroy and can get away with it. That's more interesting than country allegiance.
Yeah. Like, I love a good twist, but an emotional arc is 10 times more powerful than that. Like, that bathroom scene is a linchpin for this movie, and I feel like this scene makes me completely forget about that, because I go, oh, okay, so did it matter to him? I think it muddied the waters.
Yeah. All right, best review, worst review. Let's see what the folks at home at the LA Times and Time Magazine.
The old LA Times.
All right, best review. We're going back to our good friend Sheila Benson at the LA Times.
Sheila, how you been? Sheila, if you're around, give us a call. Let us know what you think live.
Yeah, you might remember Sheila Benson from really hating The Untouchables. She was the one hated Elliot Ness's boring wife and boring kids.
I mean, yeah, fair.
Yeah. So this is she much preferred No Way Out. She says, in Donaldson's hands, the action is kept whizzing breathlessly. By underlining the drama, not the melodrama of his story, Hackman, in a beautiful performance, becomes a conscious rapt man of depth rather than an omnipotent monster. The liaison-turned-love story between Sean Young and Kevin Costner, is equally fascinating and hell's own sensual. Each of the smaller roles has been painstakingly cast, particularly Patton's smarmy zealot and George Zanza as Costner's computer whiz close friend. Mm-hmm. And because this is a Costner podcast, her final paragraph. But No Way Out's greatest prize is Costner, a leading man at last. Fiercely good, intelligent, appreciatively sensual in a performance balanced perfectly between action and introspection.
Yeah.
She gets it right.
Yeah. If there's we identified if there's a critique of Untouchables, it's the family dynamics. So,
and
yeah,
I can totally understand a reviewer who has seen a guy like Costner in from Fandango to American Flyers to Silverado to Untouchables, and then finally this be like, there he is.
Yeah.
There's all the pieces. It's like it's like a prospect in sports who's got all the tools but no toolbox. It's like there's it all in one place now.
Yeah, and exactly. And I think that's true. As much as I would say we look back at the test of time and look at Untouchables as, a production, a production that vaulted him. Like we said, in terms of performance, in terms of putting it all together, we've got the Malibu Hot Summer, who would become Gardner Barnes. Yeah. We've got traces of Elliot Ness. We've got traces of his character in Testament, of just the guy who has just like lost it all. I agree. I think if we're gonna clickbait this movie and give us a tagline on the social media, it is here's the point where we ask, can Costner put it all together? This is the role where he proves he has all that. He has the craft behind a nuanced character. He has the ability to handle a big budget, and he has the ability to shoulder a plot on his character. I think he proves it here. Yeah.
Now for the worst review. This is from Richard Schickel. Richard Schickel at Time Magazine. Says the final flaw in No Way Out should be easily ignored. Indeed, viewers who arrive at the movie 5 minutes late and leave 5 minutes early will avoid the setup and payoff for the preposterous twist that spoils this lively, intelligent film. Why Donaldson and writer Robert Garland chose to sacrifice sympathy for Costner's character by giving him a second superfluous identity is a mystery infinitely more baffling than the one they have made. Truthfully, I mean, there's worse reviews we've read.
Yep.
That's not true. Terrible. It's basically saying, you made a good movie. Why'd you add 10 minutes to it on either end and just
ruin
it?
I don't disagree
entirely. And I don't disagree. I don't know if I agree. I don't know.
So
I think
you don't disagree, but you don't know if you agree.
I don't know. I don't know.
This is a podcast where you want to hear guys not understand the English language. You've come to the right place.
I'm saying I don't know if the twist sucks.
So you made people listen to an hour of your voice, and you're saying you don't know. Okay,
I don't know.
Cool.
I don't know. The twist. I think the twist sucks. The twist sucks. Okay.
I agree. I mean, I think objectively, it's not a bad twist, but I agree. When you look at this whole movie, you just go, on paper, you'd go that makes sense to do that here, and maybe it's just the fact that the cast and writing is actually so strong that you really go, oh, actually, you don't need that, and it lessens the impact. And maybe you didn't know that in pre-production, but I agree. Like the twist is a drawback from this movie.
All I get from the twist is, oh, he was actually a spy all along. That's all I get.
Yep.
That's all I get.
A good twist, I feel, should make you want to immediately rewatch the movie with that in light, and this did not have that effect for me. Yeah.
This is a big one. This is a hot debate. We haven't had many of what Kevin could have. Instead of who could have Kevin'd, what Kevin could have done instead of this movie. The movie that Kevin Costner turned down and did this one instead, and I'm not saying he chose this one over that. He might have just chosen not to do that one on his own accord. He turned down Platoon, that filmed at this exact same time, and he did this. He was up for Sergeant Barnes for Tom
Sizemore?
Not Tom Sizemore. No, what's his fucking name?
Oh, Tom Berenger.
Tom Berenger's character.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
Because that's like an older. I would have thought I'm like the only person could be Charlie Sheen, right? Like
if you're in Vietnam, if you're 30 and in Vietnam, you're definitely of the older,
I guess,
like cohort.
Yeah.
I just don't see, like, I mean, that character is just like a monster. Like that guy just like massacres people. And Tom Berenger does an incredible job in that movie.
Tom Berenger's great.
Tom Berenger does a way better job than Costner would have done. All due respect to Costner.
I agree. I don't see how you could have had Costner in that role.
Do you think, career-wise, this or that? What's the bit like? I mean, Platoon won Best Picture.
Yeah.
Okay. I also want to say why he turned it down. He turned it down because his brother was a Vietnam vet, and he didn't want to disrespect his brother or Vietnam vets by doing the role. I get it. If it was my family, I might reconsider. But
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. Listen, if my sibling had been in that war, less than a decade prior, like, and it's not a matter of making a declarative statement or stance, but just saying like, here's a role I would or wouldn't take. Like, like I probably, if I was in Kevin Costner's shoe, would have done the same thing.
And that role too, that movie too, is much more, there are other Vietnam War movies that are critical of the Vietnam War. That movie especially focuses on soldiers, grunts, committing atrocities. Like, that's what that movie deals with.
And I think what people don't understand all the time also is like, you don't have the finished movie in front of you when you see that. Yeah. You don't see Platoon as like, oh man, they really nailed this, and they confronted some hard things, but they told a really authentic story that was important. All you have is a script at that point. And so like, you don't know if it's going to be.
And Oliver Stone wasn't a like big hit director yet.
I mean, even since Oliver Stone is hit or miss, even since.
Oh, big time. But he had a big run. Like, Oliver Stone had a big
I agree, but that's
run.
what I'm saying. Like, you don't know what it's going to be. And so you have a script in front of you, and you don't know if it's going to be Saving Private Ryan or a total bust.
Or Platoon or a total bust.
Well, but if you don't know what the portrayal is going to be, I very much understand as an actor going, I'm going to pass on this. Like it's not like Costner was didn't have other offers, especially at this point.
Personal issues aside, you still think it was the right move, career-wise?
I think you have to say yes, because although we don't, I mean, hey, most people don't think of No Way Out, but obviously as we've established, like, Hollywood looked at this role, looked at his chops from this. Yeah. And it, even more than Untouchables, which we look at now, I mean, apparently that's what paved the way for him to be, like, went from, we can cast him in the lead role of a movie to being, this guy is a leading man. And that's the phase that we're about to enter into with Bull Durham and with everything else. We're about to enter into Kevin Costner is triple A-list leading man.
Yeah, and Platoon too. It wins Best Picture. I think Berenger might have been nominated for it, but it isn't the lead. If it was the Charlie Sheen part, then sure, but it wasn't. Who do you have for who could have Kevin? Because I didn't have anything.
Yeah, so there were the two main actors who were considered were Mel Gibson, which I think we can see,
and was also up for Untouchables, so that's interesting.
Exactly, yeah. I think Costner and him were like, it would have been a slightly different movie, but you can see, there would have been a little less humor, a little more intensity.
And Roger Donaldson had worked with him already. Mel Gibson on The Mutiny.
Yeah, and the other major actor up for his role was Patrick Swayze, which I think also would have worked really well. Again, would have been different. Would have been a little more like gritty, no nonsense. So with Costner, you get the humor, and I think with Swayze, you get
intensity.
Flashes of humor, but you really get like
you get intense.
You get Roadhouse, Patrick Swayze, right? And so that would have changed the movie. And again, I think that this movie thrives on that you only have a little bit of a time to establish that relationship between between Susan and Tom, and I think you need the humor and playfulness of Kevin Costner. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
The Kevin in memoriam. So when Kevin is our dearly departed, and they play his name in the Oscar in memoriam, what scene from this movie makes it?
This might seem like a weird take. I think it's probably the scene where he goes out without a safety line to rescue the guy on the boat. It's just like, it's not about his performance, but it's just visually, it's a great set piece. You know, it captures that, like, Kevin Costner as an actor is a guy that you believe in. And in this moment, you know, military industrial complex aside, this is like a scene where you look out and you're like, I can get behind this guy. You know, he's climbing out in the bow of a military warship, and he's rescuing that dude. So
I would say I want Kevin Costner to be remembered much more for being the sex symbol he is, and I'm putting the limo in there.
Oh, hey, you know what? He is talking. I think I looked up a bunch of stuff. He's talked about that a bunch of times. I think that was his famous scene at this point. So, you know, you might not be wrong.
Put the limo in, Dave.
Him and was the limo driver's name Bill?
Bill, yeah.
Bill. Him and Bill and Sean Young.
Yeah. Get it in there. All right, new category. Kevin Costner, Memorabilia Hall of Fame. What from this movie are you putting in?
Yes. Oh boy. Okay, here's what I'll say. I'll say it's the computer paper with the box on it. I don't want both
with the
ripped
blood
off.
stain?
With the blood stain, and just I want one side of the 3-punch hole siding ripped off, and then just David Bryce music box, whichever ambassador on it. So I'm going to say Moroccan ambassador. I'm going to say that's my memorabilia.
Just framed
for this scene.
Framed. Yeah, I think I just want to get like the full white suit, just pressed and framed.
The costume. Yeah, costume's allowed.
Yeah, just put that. That's just like, I want to know that those duds were on Kevin Costner. But the pair of pants with the coffee stain.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, maybe the coffee cup that he deftly spills.
All right, MVP. Adam, do you have an anti-MVP?
Okay, so
I know you do.
I do, and I actually didn't talk about it most of this podcast. I want to give the benefit of the doubt. I don't think anybody enters into a project trying to be crappy. And I think if you are in Hollywood, you might not be a great person, but I think that you clearly have a talent.
You're probably not a great person.
I mean, maybe, but I don't think your success is predicated on being a bad person. I think there's some good people in there. But I think that the score for this movie, I think this is one of the worst soundtracks I've ever heard in my life. And I don't know if that's
it's not great.
Wasn't the tools. Like, I know it's a synth soundtrack and that's an 80s thing, but
no, there's great synth soundtracks out there.
Have you ever seen the movie Monuments Men?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's bad, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So I firmly believe that Monuments Men is made a horrible movie primarily because it has an insanely bad soundtrack. Its music choices are inappropriate. Its instrumentation is horrendous. And you look at a lot of the scenes that would otherwise be emotionally have emotional gravitas, and the music just completely makes them either forgettable or just laughable. And this is the closest thing I've ever seen to that case, where I think that the music makes a lot of scenes that could be even better here, or the scenes that don't work could be okay. I think the soundtrack is horrendous in this movie.
And who is your MVP?
I'm going to give an honorable mention to Sean Young. I think she's great, and she hosts very little screen time overall in this movie. But if she doesn't work, the whole movie doesn't work. So I'm going to say that. Homophobic 80s tropes notwithstanding, I think Will Patton is the MVP of this movie. I think that his performance,
he is great.
He is great right from the start. And again, like I said, I was expecting it to be Gene Hackman, but really, when it comes to the second half of this movie, it's really Will Patton who has the heavy lifting in the scene where he blows his brains out. That, like we said, essentially, like motivation wise, like makes no sense. Like he goes from being like completely in control to I've lost all hope. I'm gonna shoot myself.
Well, he is
in the
having
head.
like 2 murders pinned on him. One he did commit, but
Yeah, but in the span of like listen, but just in the span of a couple minutes, he goes from being completely in control of the situation to being like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna literally blow my brains out. I think Will Patton is my MVP. Even as he becomes a full-fledged villain, he is very, very magnetic. So I'm gonna say Will Patton is my MVP for this movie.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I was going between Roger Donaldson, the director. I think he does a really great job. I think thrillers and psychological thrillers and spy intrigue, I think it's so hard to weave all those pieces and keep the momentum going and have the right amount of information delivered in the right ways that don't seem heavy-handed. And I think he does an amazing job. He does an amazing job of setting the atmosphere of the Pentagon and that space.
Yeah.
But I think I've got to go with my boy Kevin Costner, because this is Kevin Costner podcast and he fucking kills it. This movie's the reason he's a star. And the fact that like this was a piece that he brought over, that Orion was like, you know, they bought stock in early, you know?
Yeah.
Having that opportunity and being able to kick that door down when it's open just the littlest bit and just go, here you go. This is everything I can do. I think it's got to be Costner on this one. All right, we're wrapping up here. Power rankings. Our current lead is The Untouchables at 7.75. Adam, what are you giving the movie? Not Costner's score, but just movie.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this movie a 7.3.
A 7.3.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly solid. I think even though I don't love the score and there's some questionable realism moments, I think it is. I would say even above Fandango, I would say this is our most underrated movie so far. Like I had never heard of this. I didn't know anything about it going in, and I'm like, this movie's.
Yeah, this movie.
Like, I don't know why this movie isn't up there with Fatal Attraction and Basic Instinct. This is a great movie.
This movie's, or even just like the other spy movies that of like Hunt for Red October, Crimson Tide.
Yeah.
Why it isn't part of that conversation blows my mind, because it's fucking great. It slaps.
I agree.
All
it
right.
does slap.
Give me your Costner score.
I'm going to give it a 7.9.
A 7.9.
A 7.9 on the Costner rating, because I think he does take a huge step forward. I think there's lots of places that we continue to see him grow. But in terms of a nuanced character that's realistic, that has a ton of scenes, and that, like you said, this movie, more than any other, is on his shoulders, I will give him a 7.9.
Adam, I gave this movie a 7.6. I rated it just slightly below The Untouchables, which I had at a 7.8. And I'm giving Costner, I actually had your exact score, 7.9.
Wow.
I didn't want to go to 8 because I still think there's some big 8s coming up.
Yeah. I mean, 8 is listen, 8 is an A. Like I'm like 7.9 is not a. There's nothing.
I think he gets a solid 79. If you could probably petition your college professor to just bump that up to an A if you really wanted to.
Right.
But they're going to give you a 7.9.
And we will contact our friend Holger Syme to bump that up if we want to.
Hey, trust me, I did that. I did that in university for sure. But it wasn't from a 70.9 to a 80. It was like a 49 to a 50. Can you bump that 59 to a 60 for me, bud? That'd be great.
He's a good guy, so
It really helped me not get on academic probation if you do that for me, pal.
Hey, you graduated 11 years later. Don't sneeze in anything.
11 years after I started, not after big deal. All right, so that gives us a final score Wow.
Is it a close call?
It is a close call, but it does not overtake it.
Woo!
7.67 versus the untouchable 7.75.
Wow.
It is less than a digit of percentage point. We do not have a new leader. The Untouchables holds on another day.
The Untouchables holds on. That's your headline, people.
Thank you for listening. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Talking Costner. Next month, we got the big one. We got one of the big ones.
We're getting into the real sports categories.
We got Bull Durham, widely considered the greatest sports movie ever made. We'll find out if that's true. Mm-hmm. I got a hunch it's at least in the consideration.
If you like what we're doing, helps us out huge on the algorithms to leave a 5-star rating and a review. Even if your review is tell the Adam guy to shut his trap, it doesn't matter. Any news is good news. So if you can give us a rating and a review, that would help us out huge. Peace out.
Bye.